in any high-stakes interaction, whether negotiating a high-value contract, leading a team, or assessing a new relationship, the single greatest hazard is operating on assumptions. Most people take what others say at face value, confusing polite pleasantries and polished elevator pitches for actual intent. They wait until commitments break, promises dissolve, or silent sabotage occurs before realizing they were misjudged or outmaneuvered from the start. High status operators do not rely on hope or blind faith. They master the subtle psychological mechanics that compel people to reveal their true motives long before the ink dries or the dust settles. Lead learning how to draw out someone's authentic intentions quickly is not about aggressive interrogations, hostile cross-examinations, or acting like an undercover detective. Direct confrontation causes people to put up defenses, carefully filter their words, and present a manufactured persona designed to hide their weaknesses. The true art of psychological investigation lies in creating a low-pressure environment where people feel completely safe, even subtly encouraged to drop their guard and show you exactly who they are and what they really want. Dale Carnegie laid down a fundamental law of human behavior that forms the cornerstone of this mastery. Every individual's favorite subject in the world is themselves. People possess an irresistible psychological urge to validate their choices, display their intelligence, and talk about their ambitions. When you learn to harness this innate desire with quiet composure, you don't need to force information out of anyone. You simply open a conversational door, sit back, and let their own ego carry them straight into full transparency. Blends. The primary reason most people fail to read others accurately is that they talk too much. They dominate the conversation, over-explain their own positions, and rush to fill every brief lull in dialogue with their own thoughts. In doing so, they give away all their tactical leverage while learning nothing about the person sitting across from them. To reverse this balance, you must transform yourself into an active listener who uses deliberate, strategic, open-ended framing. Blends. When you master the art of asking questions that cannot be answered with a simple yes or no, you force the other party to construct narrative responses. In those extended narratives, their true priorities, hidden anxieties, and core values naturally surface. They leak subtle details through their choice of words, their tone, their body language, and what they choose to emphasize versus what they deliberately leave out. Bandit, consider the fundamental difference in dynamic. When you shift from passive listening to active observation, a person's words are carefully chosen by their conscious mind, but their micro-behaviors, casual side comments, and unscripted reactions under conversational silence are directed by their subconscious. By mastering strategic conversational setups, you bypass their social filters and gain a direct view into their actual motivations. In the next section, we will break down the exact conversational frameworks, strategic baiting techniques, and behavioral mirroring tools that make people open up to you effortlessly and completely. People leak their true priorities when given low-pressure space to speak freely without interruption. The most effective method for drawing out genuine intentions without raising suspicion is the strategic use of hypothetical pressure tests. When individuals feel put on the spot by direct questions, their analytical brain instantly constructs a safe, socially acceptable response. However, when you reframe the topic as a harmless, hypothetical scenario or ask about a third party's behavior, the guard lowers completely. People naturally project their own internal ethics, hidden desires, and personal coping mechanisms onto hypothetical situations because they do not feel personally exposed. Dale Carnegie observed that if you want to understand what drives a person, you must step into their psychological shoes and look at the world from their perspective. When you invite someone to evaluate a theoretical conflict, you are giving them permission to speak freely. Their subconscious mind assumes it is evaluating someone else, while in reality, it is laying out its own blueprint for how it operates under pressure. Consider how this technique works in a professional partnership or hiring scenario. And instead of asking a candidate or partner directly, are you honest under pressure, to which everyone offers a rehearsed ideal answer? You introduce a third-party dilemma. A colleague of mine was recently placed in a situation where taking a short-term shortcut saved his project from missing a critical deadline, but it technically buffed. How do you think someone in that position should navigate that trade-off? Deconstruct the psychological genius of that framing. You didn't accuse them, nor did you demand a personal confession. You offered an open narrative. A person who prioritizes strict integrity will focus on protocol, long-term risks, and transparency. A person driven by short-term gain or opportunistic shortcuts will rationalize the breach, explaining why the end justifies the means. In 3 seconds of casual conversation, they revealed their foundational value system without ever realizing they were being evaluated. Another high-level tool in your investigative toolkit is tactical mirroring, paired with deliberate silence, pioneered by top behavioral analysts and hostage negotiators. Mirroring is the simple act of repeating the last 2 or 3 critical words your counterpart just spoke, delivered as a gentle, curious question. Suppose someone offers a vague, polished excuse during a negotiation. We really like the proposal, but we just feel the timing isn't right for our team. Instead of arguing or rushing to offer a discount, you mirror them with a calm, downward inflected tone. Timing isn't right. Then, execute absolute silence. Lean back, hold warm, unblinking eye contact, and do not utter another syllable. Human psychology detests unfulfilled conversational space. The sudden silence creates an irresistible psychological urge within the other person to fill the vacuum. Because your mirror felt like genuine interest rather than an attack, they feel compelled to elaborate. In their attempt to explain the vague statement, they discard their surface polite excuse and drop the actual truth. Well, honestly, our budget was frozen by leadership last week, or we actually prefer a different vendor's feature set. The real objection surfaces instantly, allowing you to deal with reality rather than a polite lie. When you combine hypothetical pressure tests with tactical mirroring and intentional silence, you turn ordinary dialogue into a high-powered truth mirror. People begin to tell you things they hadn't even intended to share. Simply because you created the exact psychological space that permits full disclosure. In the next section, we will explore how to detect hidden deception and incongruence by matching verbal claims against non-verbal subconscious leaks. Tactical mirroring paired with intentional silence forces vague excuses to yield to underlying truth. Words can be rehearsed, stories can be crafted, and smiles can be forced, but the human nervous system is an involuntary broadcaster of truth. No matter how skilled someone is at telling you what you want to hear, their subconscious mind constantly leaks their real intentions through micro-behaviors and physiological friction. To master the art of uncovering true motives quickly, you must train yourself to detect the gaps between verbal claims and non-verbal leaks. what behavioral psychologists call incongruence. Neat. Dale Carnegie pointed out that genuine human connection depends on reading the emotional state of the person in front of you. When someone is speaking from a place of authentic intent, their words, tone, posture, and facial expressions move in perfect harmony. But when someone is masking their motives, hiding an agenda, or feigning enthusiasm, their physical body experiences a subtle internal conflict. That hidden conflict manifests as micro-expressions, speech disruptions, and involuntary shifts in physical baseline. The first key indicator of hidden intent is a disruption in their behavioral baseline. Before you can spot deception or hidden motives, you must establish how a person acts when they are relaxed and under zero pressure. Observe their natural speech rate, their normal level of eye contact, their baseline posture, and how frequently they blink or gesture. Once you establish this baseline in casual conversation, introduce a topic that touches directly on their potential hidden agenda or real commitment. Watch closely for immediate baseline shifts within the first 2 seconds. Vocal pitch and pacing. A sudden spike in vocal pitch or a rapid acceleration in speech speed often signals internal anxiety as the brain rushes to defend a weak or fabricated stance. Conversely, long, unnatural pauses before answering simple questions indicate heavy conscious filtering. And physical micro-withdrawal. When a topic threatens someone's hidden agenda, they often perform subtle distancing movements. They might lean back slightly, cross their arms, cross their legs away from you, or create physical barriers by adjusting a water glass or phone between you and them. Equal blocking and blink rates. A sudden increase in blink frequency or prolonged eye closure while speaking signals a subconscious attempt to block out the stress of withholding the truth or delivering an insincere response. Pangdiya. Another powerful indicator of hidden intent is the contradictory gesture. The subconscious mind often tells the real story milliseconds before the conscious voice finishes its statement. Pay attention to head nods and head shakes that run counter to their verbal claims. If someone says, "We are completely committed to this timeline," while subtly shaking their head side to side, trust the physical shake over the spoken word every single time. The body is issuing a quiet veto against the mouth's promise. Pay close attention as well to linguistic distance tactics. When people are not fully committed to an idea or are preparing an easy exit strategy, their language becomes strict. They substitute clear commitments, "I will deliver this by Tuesday," with weak conditional phrases. "We should probably aim to get that looked at sometime next week," or generally, "That's something we usually try to support." These vague qualifiers are psychological escape hatches designed to give them plausible deniability when they fail to follow through. Right? When you learn to spot baseline disruptions, contradictory physical gestures, and linguistic distance tactics, people can no longer hide behind polished scripts. You see their true position with absolute clarity while the conversation is still happening. Banned. In the next section, we will look at how to use strategic vulnerability to dismantle defensive walls, completely making people feel so safe that they willingly lay down their weapons and reveal their deepest motivations. Subconscious micro-behaviors and baseline shifts reveal hidden motives long before words ever catch up, while psychological pressure tests and body language decoding are essential. There is a far more profound high-status key to unlocking a person's true intentions: strategic vulnerability. Most people approach high-stakes conversations with their guard up, expecting a battle of wits or a mutual game of defensive maneuvering. When both parties stand behind emotional armor, real intentions remain tightly locked away. However, when you intentionally initiate a moment of controlled, low stakes openness, you completely rewrite the psychological dynamic of the room. Dale Carnegie observed that if you want to gain someone's deepest trust and persuade them effectively, you must first demonstrate authentic warmth and vulnerability. People do not open up to flawless, unyielding fortresses. They open up to human beings who make them feel secure. When you reveal a minor strategic concession, admit a small uncertainty, or share a light personal challenge, you activate one of the most powerful psychological drivers in human nature, the law of reciprocity. LEMDA. The human brain is hardwired to match the baseline of the person across the table. If you approach someone with cold, calculating suspicion, their nervous system instinctively matches your defensiveness. But when you display deliberate control vulnerability, their brain interprets the environment as safe, feeling no need to defend themselves. Their subconscious guard drops, and they feel a compelling internal pressure to match your openness with their own authentic truth. BAMDO to deploy strategic vulnerability without compromising your leverage. Keep these 3 rules in mind, your node. First, keep the vulnerability low stakes. Never expose a critical flaw, a core business weakness, or a sensitive piece of leverage that could be weaponized against you. Share a harmless personal anecdote, a lesson learned from a past mistake, or a minor operational challenge you are currently refining. The goal is to signal human authenticity, not weakness. Second, pair openness with total composure. When you state a limitation or challenge, deliver it with a calm smile and steady eye contact. For example, in a strategic partnership meeting, you might say, to be completely transparent with you, our primary focus this quarter is refining our speed of delivery. We are taking on fewer clients to ensure the quality remains exceptional. What is the single most critical priority for your team over the next 6 months? Blend and analyze the psychological brilliance of that exchange. You offered an honest, clear boundary regarding your focus, which established immense credibility. By following it immediately with a direct, open question about their priorities, you gave them full permission to match your candor. Because you led with truth, they are far more likely to lay out their actual timeline, budget constraints, or internal challenges rather than defaulting to generic business jargon. Third, never judge the disclosure. If they reveal an intention or priority that surprises you, or even conflicts with your goals, do not react with anger or instant judgment. The moment you judge someone for being honest, their defenses lock back up permanently. Accept their truth with a calm, neutral head nod and validate their perspective. I completely understand why that's top priority for you. Chant. When you master strategic vulnerability, you cease to be an adversary or an interrogator. You become a psychological haven, a high-status leader in whose presence people voluntarily drop their masks and show you their true hand. And in our final movement, we will synthesize these frameworks into a seamless, permanent strategy for navigating every professional and personal relationship with total clarity and unshakable confidence. Enk. Controlled strategic vulnerability triggers the law of reciprocity, prompting others to drop their guard and match your candor. Uncovering a person's true intentions is not about playing manipulative games or treating every relationship as a battlefield. It is about operating with supreme clarity in a world filled with constant noise, superficial charm, and hidden agendas. When you combine active listening, tactical mirroring, body language decoding, and strategic vulnerability, You develop an invisible compass. You no longer waste time chasing empty promises, overanalyzing mixed signals, or suffering the painful consequences of misplaced trust. Dale Carnegie's enduring wisdom reminds us that the ultimate objective of understanding human nature is to build deep, authentic connections grounded in real. When you know where someone truly stands, you gain the power to make wise, grounded decisions. You can align with partners who share your values, step away from toxic alliances before they inflict damage, and guide complex negotiations to outcomes where both sides win with complete integrity. Lean as you integrate these psychological principles into your daily interactions. Carry them with absolute emotional composure. Never use your ability to read people as a weapon to embarrass, expose, or confront them unnecessarily. True authority is quiet, patient, and restrained. When someone leaks a hidden agenda or reveals an insincere motive, you do not need to call them out. You simply take mental notes, adjust your strategy, and protect your boundaries with a calm, unbothered smile. And mastering this level of perception grants you the ultimate social advantage, total sovereignty over your inner circle and peace of mind. In every room you enter, you step into every meeting, partnership, and friendship not as someone hoping for the best, but as a composed, observant leader who sees reality as it truly is. True authority never needs to expose hidden agendas. It simply observes, adapts, and maintains unshakable boundaries.